in commercial real estate transactions, you've got acquisitions, due diligence, you've got debt financing, you've got equity relationships, construction, project management, asset management, reporting, dispositions, accounting. The list continues to go on and on. And so what I took is I took all of those tasks and I said, okay, let me layer these on top of the Ikigai model, the mental model or the concept, and let me figure out where my sweet spot is. And I found out that my sweet spot, I heard you speaking to this, that Jeremy is very good in Excel, is not modeling out deals, is not doing accounting and project management. It's focusing on building relationships. And so what I did is I started to put that out in the world. I said, I got this new idea. I'm willing to bring deal flow, investors, and I need partners that can fill those gaps for me. Yeah, well, first of all, I'm a child of God, and I try to remind myself that every single day. And it's very important to keep rooted in that faith, especially when you get into the business of finance and real estate that I'm in. You start seeing some circles that go in the wrong direction. That being said, I think I heard Ellis mention the fact that I'm an ex-athlete, and my stint in the NFL was very, very brief. But I took a lot of lessons away
You made
from.
it. There's very few people can say they made it, man, short or
Yeah,
not.
I took a lot of lessons away from athletics that I now apply into our business. And so, I kind of do two things here in Kansas City. On the brokerage side, a lot less than I have been in the past. We're really focused on our own acquisitions and operations of the real estate that we own and operate here in Kansas City. So very similar to you, we are real estate owners and syndicators that bring investors opportunities to get access to deal flow that they would not have had otherwise. And we manage the properties, we do the construction, leasing, all of that. We're highly focused on the Midwest. We're starting to kind of trickle out into some other markets that I can still drive to, but all of our holdings, which is, close to 1,100 units now, are all here in Kansas City, mostly focused on workforce housing. So Class C apartments where we can really add value to those buildings through an operational efficiency with us managing it, or through cosmetic upgrades. So I'm sure everybody's heard that in the past, but we're a very localized, I would say, group. Our team is 7 strong now, and it will quickly be probably 10 to 11 by the next probably 3 to 4 months, just depending on how we can bring these folks on. So I'm really excited. This topic that we're talking about today, building high performance teams, is one that I've been doing a lot of research, a lot of studying on, and thankfully in my past I've done a lot of leadership reading, and now I'm starting to get actually the ability to utilize a lot of that. So that's who I am. That's what I focus on, Ellis.
So, Logan, let's back up a little bit, man, because when we first started chatting, and I knew where you were. You were talking about investing. You're doing, maybe you had done a few deals.
Yep.
Well, then all of a sudden, dude, you left me in the dust, man. I was like, I feel like a small guy talking to Logan now, and not in stature anymore. And so, but there was something about, the partners you found. And so Oscar, for example, he asked some questions. I think he's a one-man show at the moment. Maybe he's not.
Sure.
I'm just using Oscar as an example. Talk about what made those team members such a good fit for you guys, like for you personally, and what were you looking for in kind of your initial team and team members?
Yeah. Well, I think I have to tell a story, and I have to tell a story about a deal that I lost a lot of money on personally. And this goes back close to 2.5 years ago, where beforehand, everything I had touched turned to gold. So I was Mr. Midas, as you may have heard. I had the Midas touch going on in Kansas City. And I found a big deal. I put it under contract. I brought one investor into the project with me. I tried to wear all of the hats. So from acquisition to project management to construction management, leasing, everything. I was trying to do all of this. And when I was chasing all of those rabbits, I caught none of them. And so I had to take a step back. I sat down with my wife, who's very strategic, and she said, well, look, what are your strengths? Where do you focus at that you excel? And I started to dive into that. And I came up with a few kind of processes for myself that allows me to have a mental model to use to then apply to my business. And so the mental model I grasped onto was Strength Finders 2.0. So one of my points here is knowing thyself. But then the second one was the ikigai. And ikigai just is a Japanese concept. It's very simple, but it means a reason for being. And it's a Venn diagram, which is the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. And so I took a really deep dive kind of thought process into that, first with myself. And then I said, okay, let me apply this to the commercial real estate world. And what I found were some huge gaps. And at the same time, I was reading Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership. And, he doubles down and says, make your weaknesses your strengths. That's where Jocko and I actually disagree. We disagree on a few things, but in the concept of making my weaknesses my strengths.
I wouldn't tell him that to his face, though. He might, if there's a guy I'm more scared of than you, it would be Jocko, by the way. So.
Well, I hopefully I'll get to be on his podcast one day, but I always tell Jocko that he gets up at 4:34 and I have all of his t-shirts. I'm on his t-shirt club. I love it. But I actually get up at 4:00. So if I'm beating Jocko up, I've already got one win for the day. But basically looked at the ikigai. And then I apply that to commercial real estate transactions, right? So in commercial real estate transactions, you've got acquisitions, due diligence, you've got debt financing, you've got equity relationships, construction, project management, asset management, reporting, dispositions, accounting. The list continues to go on and on. And so what I took is I took all those tasks and I said, okay, let me layer these on top of the ikigai model, the mental model or the concept. And let me figure out where my sweet spot is. And I found out that my sweet spot, I heard you speaking to this, that Jeremy is very good in Excel, is not modeling out deals, is not, doing accounting and project management. It's focusing on building relationships. And so what I did is I started to put that out in the world. I said, I got this new idea. I'm willing to bring deal flow, investors, and I need partners that can fill those gaps for me. And so that's good in concept, right? That's very complete at the theoretical level, but I needed to make it effective at the applied level. And so what I did was started meeting with people. I met with everybody, it felt like, in Kansas City. And all roads led to these two guys. I said, what you're doing, you have got to meet these two guys that are out there, doing the other pieces that you are not doing. And it's a pretty funny story. I won't bore you guys with it, but it took me 2 or 3 months to get in front of these guys. And once I did, the relationship really started off. But we didn't become friends first. We became business partners first. We tested out kind of our business relationship before the friends piece. But as if anybody knows, I'm big on an individualization. So I have a good read on folks on who they are as individuals. And, I had been doing some projects with some people that, my values didn't really align up on. So I exited those partnerships. So I was very cognizant of the fact that, hey, my values need to be aligned with the people that I'm thinking about doing business with. And so we did a lot of what I would call culture indexes and strengths tests. And Ray Dalio has one of my favorite ones that he just put out. So Ray Dalio, everybody knows he's the CEO of Bridgewater, wrote Principles, but he has a new kind of mission in life to give all of these principles back to people in a digestible way. If you haven't downloaded his app, Principles 2.0, I get one in my email every single day or on the app every single day. And I just get to read that and save them. It's the whole book is on an app, which is incredible. But on top of that, he brought a brand new strengths test where he took all of these other strengths tests, combined them, probably spent millions of dollars to do this. And then, got the brightest minds. Adam Grant was one of the guys he consulted with on this strengths test and brought that in. And so I had all of us take that test. And what we found was very interesting. There's different islands on this test that you can take. And the islands are really, really cool. So it'll help you understand kind of where you stand. If you're an architect, a creator, or an advocate. Well, turns out I'm the advocate, Parker is the creator, and Corey is the architect. We didn't have any overlapping strengths. And now that didn't just happen by happenstance. It was kind of intuitive for me. But when we actually put it on paper, we saw, holy cow, now we understand from a principle standpoint why we all work so well together. And so that's the first piece that I'll just say, and I'll let you ask some questions on that, Els.
No, that's excellent. I mean, I love that, and you guys got very lucky that there was that, but I think I wrote those down, Principles 2.0 and the strengths test there, to really do that test. Or even if you're not going to do it with your members, do that for yourself. So,
Right.
here's what I bring to the table. I mean, here's then what I need. I know I need Jeremy. Like I actually really don't want to do deals anymore without Jeremy because I have questions. There are things that I am not doing enough for my investors if I don't have Jeremy on my team because there's a level of which I can't bring a level of professionality without a guy like Jeremy. So I think knowing that about yourself is
Yeah.
really key.
Yeah, it's crucial. And Ray calls these leveragers, and leveragers are people who can go from conceptual to practical effectively and do most to get your concepts implemented. I have a lot of great ideas, okay, but I don't necessarily always understand how that's actually going to work in the business. And what I found was leveragers with Parker and Corey, because they've done this before. They think differently. They have different experiences than I do. They have a better background in finance and economics, all of these different things. And so they were able to take those conceptual ideas that sometimes feel, a little outlandish, and then bring them back down to the world and say, this is actually how we can go implement that, or this is a really bad idea. And so, how to do more than what we think is a puzzle that I think we all struggle with.
So
And
Logan, to be more
sure.
and by the way, if there's people who have questions, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to type them in the chat and let us answer some of these. But let me ask you a question while
Sure.
I got you. How do you like to go from, okay, you found this team, you guys are partners in this. So it's not like it's not like they're your assistants, they're actual partners.
Oh, yeah.
It does help that you have different strengths. But how do you so I just showed like our level 10 meeting. What do you guys do on a weekly or on a regular basis to just make sure everyone is literally staying in their lane and you're going to stay focused on what you're doing there? He's like, and that it really becomes result oriented,
Sure.
or result focused. How do you bring that in so that everyone's on the same page and they're doing what they're supposed to?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's three ways. You first off, you have to have fewer things to do and prioritizing them. So we have to say no to a lot of things. And I have ideas, the other guys have ideas, and thankfully we have a relationship based off of radical transparency where it's like, no, that's not what we should be focused on right now. So that's the first part. The second part is when we first got started, Ellis, we didn't stay in our own lanes. We were all over the place, and that's kind of hamstringed us for a certain amount of time. But then we started to say, okay, what are our lanes, exactly, and where should we be focused on? And we started to delegate. That's when we started to actually hire people out, and so that was very, very important. I think that's what helped us improve our productivity. But to answer your question directly, I would say this: we spend a lot of time together. Okay. We are face to face, spending a lot of time together in a lot of different environments, working out, hiking, going to our private club, having a drink together, meeting our wives, meeting each other's children, going to events together. And so it's not just this silo where we're just kind of on Zoom or on phone calls all the time. It's face to face, and you get to see how people are feeling. You get to read their body language, what's stressing them out, what's not stressing them out, where they enjoying their, spending their time. And so I think that we have regular check-ins, right? So they used to not be scheduled. They have to be scheduled now. But at any given time, we have 2 to 4 hours of time where there's really no agenda. There's some topics that we need to cover, but there's really not any agenda. And it's mostly just a check-in, and that's weekly. So we spend a lot of time outside of the office. I'm in our new office that we're purchasing, but we spend outside of the office. We get outside and we just try to, get a read on how each person is doing. Intangibly, that turns into items that need to be taken care of, or items that need to be addressed. But it's more of a approach that is not as strategic, I would say, but maybe it is strategic. I don't know. But we spend a ton of time together, and that allows us to kind of really start to feel how each person is doing, and then we make adjustments based off of that. And then that radical transparency piece, man. I mean, if I've got an issue with something, I don't just put it under the rug. It's out there, it's open. I'm bringing it up, and everybody feels like they can bring something up to them. So that's how we approach that. I don't think it's as robust as it might be in the future, but it's more of an organic kind of situation. But it comes down to just spending a lot of time together right now.
So look, and I'm trying to kind of dig into this a little bit because I feel like, man, there was a turning point for you guys, and maybe you answer it in some of these, like getting more face to face, and maybe you just say that was the answer. But You talked about you guys were kind of flailing in the beginning, but can you look back now that you guys have done several assets and say, this is when things started to click that would be applicable to people who are watching? Because Ken's got 7 employees, Bethany's
Yep.
got 25. There are people who have members, even our team, Symphony, like, we're still waiting for something to really click. What was it that really clicked? Can you identify some of the things that you guys begin to do that helps you really catch momentum and start, doing multiple deals a month? Really it seems like what you guys are up to right now.
Absolutely. There was definitely a turning point. The first one being implementing Gino Wickman's traction book, right? So the entrepreneurial operating system, running every single meeting off of that, having a goal, a purpose, and a strategy to get there in every single meeting. So it's being very intentional. The second piece was having a defined investment thesis and staying in that circle of competency. Meaning there's a lot of historic readaptive use projects we could go chase right now. There's a lot of neighborhood retail office that we could go chase right now. But guess what? What is the market asking for? What is our investors asking for? It's workforce housing. It's value add multifamily. So let's focus most of our attention on that. And then the third was COVID-19, right? It said, okay, we've read Charlie Munger. We've read Warren Buffett. We read Howard Marks on a regular basis. What do they all say? Sam Zell, same thing. When everybody's looking right, you got to go left. And so when everybody was sitting on the sidelines last year, we doubled down. And like your buddy, Grant Cardone would say, we took 10X action. So we took 10X action, not only on putting our necks out on the line and doing deals, but we also took 10X action on building the infrastructure to support that underneath us. And so when we did all 3 of those things, that combined, I feel like was the recipe for success that just allowed us to kind of hit that hockey stick growth.
Wow, that's excellent. I want to repeat that. Traction, again, that was exactly what I was showing before this, our level
Yep,
10
saw that.
meetings, going through that. I highly recommend. By the way, how early did y'all set core values in your company?
Yeah, I mean, it was the first week of traction, right? I mean, I remember it was probably March of last year, right
Do
when
you
COVID
come back
hit.
to them often? How often do you look? Can you state them? Do you know them? I'm curious, actually, seriously.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the first one is staying entrepreneurial and lean. The second one is always having our investors' interests in mind. And the way that we say that is never do a deal that you wouldn't do, right? So don't just use your investors' capital to do a project just to do a project. The third one is shark pack. I know that sounds a little bit funny, but when you think about sharks being out in the ocean and they're preying on the smaller fish, I think that all 3 of us could have our own firms separate from FTW, but when we put all 3 of them together, it allowed for a pack. So 1 + 1 didn't equal 2; it equaled 3. And so that's our third one. The fourth one, radical transparency. Right. So, hey, if you can't take constructive criticism or feedback, this probably isn't the place for you. And the fifth one is mitigated risk, but also being okay with some risk. And so I think that those are kind of our cores. I've got what I will call, obviously we're part of the same group with Raise Masters. And I took to heart what Cameron Harold said. So entrepreneurial operating system is how you are building what you are building, but it doesn't always tell you what you are building. Sorry about that, guys. My wife is FaceTiming me.
Bring
And
her
so
in.
the EOS or traction is the how. That's that's the how. That's the blueprint. But the what is the vision. And so I took that traction document and then I wrote a vivid vision with my partner's kind of interests in mind and made that thing jump off the page, right? It's something that gets our employees excited, something that gets our principals excited. It's rooted in our why of helping an underserved population, all of those different things. And so I think that, we revisit that. That's going to be plastered up on the wall here very, very soon. But every Monday morning, we bring up we have a document that's pretty similar to what you just showed everybody. And we go over our VTO. And then every quarter, the principals are taking an offsite for 2 to 3 days, typically away from our families, and revisiting all of those values, seeing where we're at with them and what's going on. And so I think that it's right in line. It's in the grain. All of our employees would be able to tell you exactly the way that we function. And it stems from the EOS, but that's kind of how we approach that.
Did you ever do? And this is the last point before I let you go, man. Logan, this has been awesome, dude. I mean, seriously, I've written down notes. It really just, I think, for me, solidifies. It takes more. Like, it's so easy, man, just to hit the ground and go, and like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm doing deals. I need to do a deal. I need to find an investor, and not like, I call this. This is like the foundation, the glue that holds all of this activity together, and just solidifies how we got to continue to commit to this. Did you do any of this? Like, talk about vision setting before you had this team? I'm just curious, like, for maybe there's a few folks here who have a team yet, but they want to build a team. How important, or did you do any of this, even having a personal vision for your life before building a team?
The mantra here is we're building our business around our life, not our lives around our businesses. So we're building our business around our life. So life, faith, family, that all comes first. And so I think being on the same page with Parker and Corey before we even, stepped in foot to the EOS was crucial. Well, I remember the day we were still at one of our properties here. We were having an offsite, and we just sat down and said, 10 years from now, what does it look like? You trying to build Blackstone, or are you trying to build legacy, kind of a private equity firm that can continue to be passed on to your employees? None of us said, hey, we're trying to build Blackstone. We're not trying to do that. What we're trying to do is give back to our community, live out our faith, but also bring a lot of value to our family. So, I mean, we did that. It wasn't on paper per se until I read, and got to meet Cameron Harold there a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But it was on the traction. We were all on the same page with that. So we knew exactly where we were going. How we get there is going to be, up and down. However, we're all rooted in the same goal. And I think that's crucial, man. I mean, I think it's the glue that keeps us together. I never have to worry about, hey, I wonder if Parker or Corey are working hard today, or, how they're going to react to a certain, scenario. It's just very in tune because we have that vision and our values are set.
Yeah, that's huge, man. Hey, Logan, I'm going to let you go here, man, just to bring on Zach. Todd does have a question in the chat. Maybe
Absolutely.
before you go, you could just type in, a good answer to Todd would be awesome.
Happy to do
Logan,
that.
Before you get out of here, man, where can people go to learn about you guys and what you're doing there in Kansas City?
I appreciate that, Ellis. We're highly active on social media, LinkedIn, but our website is ftwinvestmentsllc.com, and Kansas City is our main focus. Thank you for having me on and let me share some of these thoughts.
Logan, I tell you, man, it's been a highlight. Guys, Logan said so much of what I was talking about before. This idea of vision, vivid vision, is probably one of the best. It's a short thing. If you haven't laid out a vision for yourself, your company, like, that is step one. Core values, and then, golly, and then what he talked about, defined investment thesis. That could be a whole topic right there, learning what to say no to.
Absolutely.
Logan, love you, brother. Thanks so much, man.
Love you too. Thanks for having me.